Good day to you all from before your eyes, Data Cocoon. Today we're going to do a more gradual approach to the system, introduce it. It's not a one-on-one, it's something quite in between. So the system has been further amplified and improved, as you can see by the versioning. We're at 9.9, which represents many thousands of iterations from where we started. The first thing is to get used to the layout and topography of the front screen and to know what you're actually doing. You select a file, or you go from a pre-existing file, or you start from a fresh system, or you download some data. But my suggestion is that you use the existing embedded data. There are some substantial data sets. I'm choosing this one right over here. I generate the data, and I'm at this point over here. This is a sophisticated financial analysis of a public entity, and this is its disclosures, and we've looked at its disclosures. The entire entity is literally on the screen, all its submissions for 25 years. There is a balance sheet, there's an income statement, there's a cash flow, there's a business analysis, there's a KPI section, there's your policy. In this case, it's a life insurance company, your policy holders and your attrition rates, your employee efficiency factors, your new business enterprises. So it has a multiplicity. In order to do that, see, we have this thing called a quad splitter. And as you can see, it splits the data into a number of, in this case, 4 segments, because the data is being divided into four key components: the financial side, the operation side, the MET side, and the PRD. And these are indicated over here. Product and vitality is PRD. And MET stands for metrics and visualization. And all of these, let's just expand this one, can be expanded, and you can see the reference data very clearly from it for the 26-year period that it covers. Everything is proportional relative to the data. You're able to drill down and see data further. Or just get back to where we were over here and take it from that position. That's the quad splitter. You can also accomplish this in a slightly different format, which we'll get to, and split it according to the index. So, just going from the top. We've already chosen the data set. We're not going to be exporting anything at this point in time, but if we chose to, we could export a image of it, a JSON, an object file, the timeline, or the CSV data sets that it relates to. Clarity is a key button. It changes the composition of the data from what you've seen previously to this more dramatic, high impact focus point. You're probably asking what's all that red. That's because the data has already been pre-analyzed. As you load it, it's been pre-analyzed. This is trying to indicate to you the areas that you might want to look at statistically, as it's showing a significant variance. So we have to clarity. Gyroscope is merely to allow you to move the object continuously or keep it where it is. VR is if you had a virtual headset, you wanted to see it, it's all built in. Voice is voice command. Face, face. and there it would show you the direction of the object. It showed you the face view of it, and that's the voice command. It covers over 60 different settings for the thing. You can change the entire system. We can actually just do the following. Wave. Voice isn't on. Wave. Wave. System just changed completely. New model. New structure. Take that down so we don't get disturbed by it. And we're able to get back to that. Probably should have left it so that I can get back to rows, but we can just do it manually. And that's where we were relative to that visualization. Sync is when you have compare on. There's two different data sets. So we'll load this. There's that data that we just had, the visualization of that. And sync essentially is to sync these two panels so that they unsynced it, so that they move in harmony and you can compare the two together. The interesting thing on this one is this over here, the customers and this bank account right over there. Because that bank account is showing the progress of the company. It's the fastest growing segment of the company, and it actually represents a high growth factor within the company itself. The reason I'm going around it is that if I could find it easily, you'll see the extent of the banking structure. The two don't at this point sync exactly, they sync structurally. I was trying to actually just compare the two accounts so you'll see it. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's keep to one screen. It's clear. It's hard enough as it is. So sync, compare. What we've done before. Face we just discussed. That's when we want to see the object head on. I did that verbally. Now that was the push there. This analyze and optimize is and forecast is a totally different section. Here we have the ability to forecast, as opposed to at the bottom here, you'll see that we have the ability to project. So the three different concepts. One is project, one is forecast, and one is optimize. So project is essentially choosing a 10-year period and it will push forward based on algorithmic selections that you make. And here it says, how do you want that to grow? It's already grown the 10 years. And we'll say, right, okay, let us come and let's choose a low linear regression for the last 5 years. And you come down here and you push forward in the timeline to period 35 now, because we were at 26. Now we're at the full time period of where it is, and this is what it looks like on that projection system. So it's got a 10-year projection, or we can go back to current. And here we are at current, and the date has gone back to 26, and everything's as it was. Now, forecast does that on a slightly different basis. It uses the analysis tools to work out which of the nodes, each one of these elements, is growing at what pace. And statistically, it does a forecast, a 10-year forecast again, slightly different to what we saw before. And it's already done that. So you might well see what it's looking like. There's the forecast, different model to what we were looking at previously, as you can see. This is statistically driven forecasts. And then on top of that, we can optimize, which will bring up a screen that says, okay, what aspects do we want to optimize? Maximum risk, maximum returns, and then we could do a few other things, and then we just hit run optimize. The run optimizer, and there it's done it for us. And then we can say, well, let's see what it's done. And there's the optimization area, all crystal clear and wonderfully displayed for us to have a look at. So it's pretty sophisticated at this point in time. The audit button is just to prove that the system is in audit mode, all 100% 24/7, and that the cast and crosscast is continuously checked and that it's blockchained. There's the blockchain proof of concept that it's in place and solid. Then we get to the next area. Remember, we're just dealing with the top line here. We haven't even gone into the system itself. The ability to actually do SQL. And now you'll say, okay, we chose that one. Let us look at this particular one here, personal loans. And then that's activated that, so we could go and drill down. And there it is specifically for us, personal loans. So we're at that point, and then we would go in and inspect. The reason that it's out of focus is that the one item that is in focus is the personal loan. As you can just see, I've just highlighted that. I drill in, I say, okay, why is that? Oh, I see that they've reduced, or that you can annotate the structure, and we can say, right, loans reducing, to remember that, to bring us back to that position at any later point in time. We can refresh the screen now that we've done that. Back to where we were. Or you could actually, in the SQL, write your own SQL and obtain information from the system and analyze it accordingly. A very sophisticated enhancement to the system itself, and something that I'm sure will be of benefit to those that are more advanced and can actually write SQLs. Next to SQL is the GL. This is general ledger import. If you're going to import a set of data and add to the data, you do it through that format over there. Clean view, as the last item before help, is to show the entire system clean without any headings and bars and all that kind of stuff, and just a quick escape, and we're back to where we were. And then help, most importantly, is the online manual come information forum, and it is extensive. Covers every single aspect that you can imagine, and has got bookmark links built into it for you to analyze data and see what that data is, including the forecast and everything else like that. So I've only touched the bare surface. You can see by the thing how deep it is, sufficient to get you started and going. You won't be bored in the system itself. So we exit that, strong documentation. We then look at the object itself. Now we've already gathered that this is three-dimensional extended viewing of the item. We can see or drill down. I've shown you the drill down feature. Just indicate that one more time. Let's choose a non-balance sheet area. This is telling us those items, and we just come straight down here and changes that to that point of view that you saw before, similar. And here we're able to see the delineation and distinction between all the various aspects of this particular data set. So it doesn't have to be purely financial now. We are able to track other elements of the business itself and drill down accordingly. We'll just hit refresh, come back to where we were. Should have done drill up. I'll just do that one more time. My apologies. Let me just do that correctly. Yeah. Okay, let's now set up the group revenue. So this is the income statement portion of it. And in order to get up, we can either drill down further, if you so choose. Now we've just got the income section that we focused on and all the different aspects of the generation of revenue for the company. And we could drill up one sector and back to the next, and then get to the principal aspect of the company. And here's the totality of the organization with all its different formats. Then if I were to go a little bit further and you still have the patience, one thing I left out was the multi. I'll do that now. If you're going to open the left and right hand screen, you'd obviously want to do that through that. And that's how you've accomplished that. So we've done the dual screen, we've done the multi-screen, and now we're concentrating on these 5 key panels. So this is the statistical panel. It comes up by default when you bring it up. But the first panel literally is your start-off panel with your importation and your basic information, as well as the different models. The system has multiplicity of models that are all dynamically rendering. The X is going to work in this case. It shows up, but it's not proportional relative to the data due to the fact that we've got more than a 6-element structure to deal with. But then we have all these other models that we can look at. I'm just going to do a couple. You're welcome to always click through and go through the different models. Looks like the rows, but it's not perfect rows. This is a rows with linkages, so you can see its parent-child relationships implicit in the system itself. This is building up the entire system time and time again, so it might look like it's a little bit slower. Another model similar to the rows, slightly different. Terrain is an interesting one because this is just trying to get it to load. It's a big model. Wave we've covered. That was that one that we saw the bank accounts on. I find it very interesting. It looks like nothing at it's the one angle, and you just change that angle, and you start to see the data come alive, literally in front of you. You can see the accounts that are growing the fastest, which are tailing off, like that one. Drop off in customers, that's obviously of concern. Bank accounts growing extensively. and we can see what it generally looks like as an operation. Seismic is essentially what we used to seeing in the data formats of competitive product, essentially line graphs. And here you would have 392 line graphs, and you try and see the detail. I doubt that clarity is going to improve this, but we can try. That is just too large to get a view of it, but otherwise you'd see trend lines. Grid is this traditional view that you're used to seeing data. Primarily, this is the largest because the largest number is of concentration of numbers is going to be customers in terms of numerical count. And that shades the other figures down. You can try clarity in that one, that might work. Just changes the color, doesn't enunciate any of the data itself. So we leave that alone. Radial isn't going to help us too much, and there's a block might show us something slightly different. I don't want to spend too much time on these. Our focus is traditionally the rows and the hex. This one is also very interesting in that it shows you the concentration of data in different pockets through the index structure. Customers again, bank accounts. Every customer has a bank account, obviously, and that's why that's such a concentration over there. And that's the end of that one. So we've done the input data where we essentially import our data and it generates a model if we do it that way. We've done the stats. Only part that we haven't done in the stats is the critical portions, that is the hotkeying into the data analytics, cost of capital. We could go through and it would bring us to the cost of capital and show that to us dramatically and dynamically. I think what we have to do for that is quickly just go back to the original rows, bring it down to size. There we are. Come back to where we were. Oops. And we were clicking on this item here. And there it is there. It's been shown to us exactly where it is. And there's a dramatic cost of capital reduction and then a falling off, leveling off. And that would be certainly of interest on the financial side. So the highlights are essentially bookmark, but this is a different form of bookmark. Top and most excellent is this one over here. Hasn't changed yet. There it is over there. Customers, as indicated over here, we're looking at customers, customer growth. Be able to look at that and see the incline and how it has produced itself. Obviously, we're able to drill down and take it from there. We can also, from the same sheet, there are two important aspects that we haven't covered in how the data is presented. I'm just going to go to refresh. There we have all the data once again. And now we're at raw data view, and then we could go to Z-score. Z-score is a fairly interesting aspect in that it looks at the data from the node level itself, changes the analysis relative to what are the material aspects. You can see Z-score is enacted. We could increase the occurrence rate of what we want to look at. The system is under pressure. I acknowledge that because of the size of what we're doing and the extent. You can see it's all gone green here. It was slightly different before. And this gives us a clearer view of what's going on. We can look at the exception report, which is similar to these highlights that we saw before, except for the fact that everything is listed here. We have a full exception report item by item. We're able to drill down, look at the detail. These are all the anomalies that should be obvious to the visual eye, but have now being effectively tabulated so that you can see them. We can go all the way down to the green and say, okay, what's the detail? And do I want to put a note there? So we'll have a look at, or do you want to bookmark it? So let's first look at the detail. Every year, and there is the spike, tells us that. So we would bookmark this. It says it's being bookmarked. We'll come back to the bookmarking section in a moment. We see that that's in place. I'm going to have to refresh that. And at the top, we've got to close. So you close that down and see what it's about. These are the ability to change colorations and the geometry features of the system and saving exact positions. If I wanted to say I wanted to see that, I would save, load and save. I would go first to this item and I'd load it accordingly. And then I would recall it. If I was elsewhere and I was in the system, I wanted to see it, I would just select on it. And that would bring me back to the exact same position where I was previously. There it goes. As you can see, it's got its position organized. And below that are, if you're going to generate code for this aspect, click load and save. I think it's click load and save. We're going to change it to this position here. I think it's a double click if I'm not mistaken. Save to view 2. There it is there. So we can change this around, make sure that we're here, can change the model even. And it will bring us back to where we were. I'm just going to go to wave, because I'm familiar with that. I'm going to come back to where we were. And press the button that we're looking at. And there it brings us immediately back to that scenario. It's really impressive because if you're doing analysis on a complex setup, you want to be able to come back to where you were and know that it is that exact spot that you're looking at, so you don't have to say, oh gosh, where was it? Well, a small data set means nothing. You can move yourself and articulate yourself through it. At the bottom here, we have the time player, which is pretty obvious. Moves forward and back through time. I'm just going to take it to where we currently are. I need to pause that. And you can strip the data. You can look at it the present period or at the beginning. It's got a header and a bottom editor. So you can striate the data, in other words, look, bring it down from the top. bring it from the bottom so that you get the portion that you're trying to look at correct. You might be, for instance, looking at, I'm going to get to 2022 on this one. And here I'm going to go from 2014. And you get that general idea from there. Okay, so we're able to hone in on specifically what data aspects we're looking at. Is 2021. I was trying to show you COVID at 2020 and the effect that COVID had on the organization, and we can take it from there. We then go to the next section, which says advanced. There's only two more left. Advanced gives us the ability, I'm just going to go clarity one more time. Hasn't kicked in yet. I see this data hasn't got the full extent of the data either. Okay, we'll assume that clarity is on. And then this gives us the ability to look at the tiers of data separately. These are the inner chambers. The next level of chamber, the next, and the totality. Or we could look at it single level only, single line only, and see what the footprint of the data looks like. That is the actual footprint of all the accounts and structures of the account itself. And in the exact opposite fashion, that was how the system showed up. We had this. This will be all the rings. No, we don't want all the rings. We might want just that ring, or we want that singular ring, or those two rings. Well, just we want to see the outer ring to see what the data actually is. So you get the idea from that of what that accomplishes. And the most advanced that I've got so far is this last one, which says plus advanced, and then you go plus, and this brings up all the bookmarks. We needed to actually go back. I apologize. Show all rings. Now we're back to where we were. Come back to here, and these are bookmarks and notations. And if you remember, we touched this one over here, that spike, other current liabilities. It's highlighting it to us. So small that I actually have to other current liabilities. Perfect. And there was a spike in that, and we could annotate it or see what it says. If that's the one that we used, we didn't use that one. So we'll find the one that we used. And we actually did an annotation, and not a bookmark. Interest expense, deposits. If it was this one, it would be highlighted over here. I think it was this one right there. Loan reducing. Yes, we wrote the word loan reducing. Personal loans, if you recall, you're able to see that in clear mode. I know that the conversation is a little bit slow going and detailed in its nature, but it's covered the entire ambit of what the system's about. I hope that that was informative to yourself. Please feel free to ask me any questions. This merely acted as literally a second manual taking you verbally through the system as opposed to having to read it yourself. Martin Kagan, Before Your Eyes. Thank you again.